Our next speaker is Maxwell Frost, and he's a candidate for Florida 10? No. Yes, Florida 10. Okay, and he's a young person, a Gen Z person, and has already raised an impressive amount of money and is making Medicare for All, front and center in his campaign. So we are very happy to have him here to speak with us, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much. How's everybody doing? Hey, okay, great to hear. Good to hear. Well, it's great to be here with y'all tonight. And first and foremost, thank you so much for your work. We need Medicare for all. We need it now. People are dying. It's literally an issue of life or death. And so I want you to know, before I even start talking about myself, that I'm in your corner. I intend on being a champion to fight for universal healthcare for everybody. The solution that I believe is the most practical is Medicare for all. We'll talk more about that in a second. So yeah, my name is Maxwell Alejandro Frost. I'm running in Florida's 10th congressional district. It's currently held by Val Demings. As many of y'all know, Val Demings is running for the Senate. And so I am running for the open seat. It is an incredibly blue seat. So the primary is really the ball game here. And the cool thing about this is that, Florida, I think a lot of times gets a bad rap. I think our state is a lot more progressive than we give it credit for. We look at things like Amendment 4. Over 60% of people in the state voted to give voting rights to over 1.6 million people with previous felonies. We look at things like Amendment 2. Over 60% of the people in the state voted to give ourselves a raise, $15 an hour. And so, I think the problem is that when we put a D in front of one name and an R in front of another name, people start getting into their corners. My campaign is about centering the issues. And that's how we're going to win. And so we're really excited about it. A little bit about myself. I've been an organizer for 10 years, since I was 15 years old. What got me involved in this fight was the Sandy Hook shooting. Like many of you, I saw it on the news. I personally saw it right before a jazz band concert, when I was 15 with my friends. Seeing it on the news had a big impact on me, as I'm sure it had an impact on everybody on this call. And so I went to the memorial, and it was there where I had an interaction with one of the siblings of one of the victims that changed my life. And I left that vigil in Washington, D.C. and said, for the rest of my life, I want to fight for a world where no one has to ever lose a loved one due to gun violence or lose their own life due to gun violence. And as y'all know, you get in for one reason, you find out there's a lot of things we need to work on, whether it's healthcare, criminal justice reform, voting rights, right? There's a lot going on, election reform. But what's kept me in this work for the past 10 years are y'all and the people I've met along the way. And so really excited to be here. Shout out Rhonda and Jim. Hello. And Stefan. But just excited to be here with y'all. And look, right out of high school, I started working on campaigns all across Florida and all across the country. Got hired by this small organization called the ACLU here in Florida to fight for Amendment 4 for about a year and a half. After that, got hired by the National ACLU to fight to get every presidential candidate. Because if y'all remember 2019 for the 2020 election, there was like 1 million people running for president. If y'all remember, our goal was to get all of them on the record on civil rights and civil liberties. And so myself and a volunteer named Nina Gray actually pushed, at the time, Vice President Joe Biden to reject the Hyde Amendment. For folks who don't know, the Hyde Amendment is something that keeps specifically Black and brown, poor and working class women and folks who can give birth from being able to access abortion. We got him on the record. It led to a snowball effect that pushed him and pressured him to say, all right, we need to abolish the Hyde Amendment. And now he's the president of the United States. And so for me, that shows that organizing works. All right. And that's what this group is about. Y'all organizing together, having a thoughtful exchange of ideas, but also working to ensure we can get things like Medicare for all. Because the fact of the matter is if this pandemic has shown us anything, it's that we need healthcare and we need it now. We need higher wages and we need it now. We need paid family leave and we need it now. We need bold investments in our environment because the cost of not doing anything now is far greater than the cost of waiting. Like, we all know these things. And so for me, taking the lessons that we've learned from the pandemic, y'all, in a few weeks, we're going to hit over 1 million people died in the United States due to this pandemic. We have to think about the future and be prepared. And when we think about all the solutions, because when you talk about universal healthcare, people will bring up all the solutions, right? Medicare for all is one of them. I argue that Medicare for all is a solution that we can get to the quickest, is the one that has the most support in the House of Representatives at this point. That's a fact. And that I believe is the one that is the most practical. And I like using that word because a lot of times people like to say progressives aren't practical, right? Or you'll hear some people say I'm a pragmatic progressive or this and that. Medicare for all is a pragmatic approach to getting healthcare to every person. It's an overwhelmingly accepted and positive system in our country. And all we're doing is expanding it to everyone to say, you deserve healthcare, you deserve housing, you deserve good wages by virtue of being a human being. And it is because of that that the government should fight for that. You know, because you're born, because you're here, you deserve these things in the richest country on the face of the earth. And we're going to face a lot of opposition. It's going to be hard. We got to get people elected to office in different places, but we can do it because we can't accept what's going on now, where we have tens of thousands of people dying because they don't have the means to live, because that's the reality. So we can't accept it. Like Angela Davis said it best, I'm no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I'm changing the things I cannot accept. And that has to be our motto as we fight for Medicare for all. So y'all, thank you so much for having me today. My website is frostforcongress.com. Once again, that's FROST for congress.com. Look, we're going to win this race, not because I deserve it, but because we're a people power campaign. We raised the most money out of anybody in this race last quarter, not from a bunch of big checks or corporations. We don't take corporate PAC, from over 13,000 contributions, average contribution of $29.25. We didn't quite beat Bernie at $27, but we're trying to get as close as we can. So either way, y'all, thank you so much for having me. Are we doing questions?
We definitely have one that we'd like to ask if you have time.
Yeah, of course.
All right, this is from Stefan. He says, once elected, will you co-sponsor HR 1976 or its successor, the Medicare for All Act? And will you join the Medicare for All Congressional Caucus?
100%, 110%. That's the easiest one for me to say yes to. I want to be clear too, not only because we have a lot of co-sponsors on the bill, over 100. So I want to take it a step further, right? We need people to co-sponsor, but we also need people to go to bat. We need people to be willing to engage in the mass education of what Medicare for all means for people's day-to-day life. Because in my district, more than 60% of the people cannot afford an unexpected $300 bill tomorrow. Talking about Medicare for all, saying, imagine a world where there's no copays, premiums, deductions to be healthy. That's a popular, right? That's something that's very popular with folks. So we need people to, yes, co-sponsor Medicare for all, but get out there to your district, educate people on what it means, whip the votes, and go to neighboring districts. Hell, if you have a neighboring member of Congress who is a Democrat too, and even Republican, and is against Medicare for all, you have the guts to go there and speak with their constituents and tell them, hey, your representative is not championing something that will get you healthcare. So I promise to y'all that I will co-sponsor Medicare for all. I will be a part of the Medicare for All caucus and the Progressive Caucus, but on top of that, I'm going to be an active player in the fight for Medicare for all, because it can't be enough for our legislators to just tweet about it. We need to actually get on the ground and organize around it.
We like that answer. Lorenzo, I see your hands up. Would you like to ask a question of Maxwell?
You're muted, by the way, Lorenzo.
Okay. I was at the, thank you for not making me waste my time. I was at the PDA and I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned that you are Cuban, Afro-Cuban, and so do you speak Spanish fluently?
I say I speak Spanglish now. It's funny. Spanish was my first language. Actually, I went to ESOL, didn't know English for the first few years of my life. And then went to American school where people were making fun of me for speaking Spanish. So I didn't speak it for many years. So now I speak Spanglish. So I do speak Spanish. I understand 100%. My abuela Yaya only speaks Spanish, and we have a lot of conversations. But I always say I'm a kind of a Spanglish speaker.
Well, so am I, so don't worry about it. Thank you for this. Thank you for this.
All right, great. Thank you. And thank you, Maxwell, for taking the time to come speak with us. And it's great to have somebody who's very for Medicare for all, running for office in Florida. It's wonderful.
Well, thank you all so much for having me. I'll put my website down here again. If you can, please sign up to volunteer. If you can donate, chipping $27, please donate. We need all the help we can get. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.